Today on the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast, the spending bill, the Build Back America bullshit of Joe Biden is driving this country into the ground. We're going to tell you about the details that happen with this stupid piece of legislation. Also with me is Alec Lace. We're going to be talking about some of the egregious things that are happening in this country. And wait till you see the video of the NFL player who pummeled his girlfriend. Disgusting. Here we go.
Why aren't the people in Washington putting themselves in harm's way? Why aren't they walking the walk as well as talking the talk? Their position in Washington is to do the will of the people. I don't see anybody in Washington doing the will of the people anymore. The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hello, I am DML, and you are listening to the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast. The exclusive sponsor of this program is DMLCBD.com. Go there today and get the best CBD products that can make you feel great again. This podcast is for independent thinkers who want to recapture the great American experience, and they know it all starts with sharing the unfiltered facts, truth, and opinions I give you every day. Today's podcast will both shine a light on the solutions that can fix our nation's biggest problems, and it will make you the smartest person in the room. Here we go.
We're going to start off the program right away with Alec Lace. Alec Lace is the host of the First Class Fatherhood podcast. There he is with me, the handsome man from New Jersey, also known as an Uber driver, also known as a diesel mechanic on the railroads. So with that being said, Alec, I appreciate you joining me. I know you got a bunch of stories that you want to talk about today. We're going to start off playing a video. Tell people who it is that they're seeing in this video, the black guy who's beating the living crap out of the white girl. Give the details on it and I'll play it.
Yeah, and Dennis, a pleasure to be with you here. This is a former NFL running back, Zach Stacy. The video went viral yesterday when this thing happened. He is beating his ex-girlfriend, Kristen Evans, right in front of their 5-month-old baby who's in a carrier right on the couch. He starts beating her while the baby is there next to her, pulls her off the couch, slaps her around a few more times. Then he just fucking lunges her right into the flat screen TV, which falls on the woman. She's begging and pleading with him the entire time to please stop, calling his name, Zach, please, and then he goes over to pick something up off the couch, returns to her, smacks her again, picks her up, and then does like a WWE body slam. It's horrifying.
So where does this stand right now? I mean, that video is unbelievable. I mean, where does this stand right now?
Well, they arrested him this morning. Kristen Evans went on her Instagram yesterday and social media to plead for help if anybody had seen him. He was on the run. She said his friends were protecting him. He fled the scene. The cops showed up there a few minutes after this had happened. They thought he might have left the state. They arrested him this morning. So thank God he's off the street. And apparently, according to her, he's been beating her since she became pregnant with their 5-month-old son. Now, again, this is a relationship that dissolved. They were ex-boyfriend and girlfriend. He stopped by for whatever reason to see the baby. I'm not too sure of those details, but I mean, you could just see in the video, it's horrifying, and it's getting a reaction from a lot of people that have been terrorized by watching it, former people that have been abused and stuff like that. So this is definitely one of these cases here that I don't still understand how this is happening so often in our society, where it used to be like the thought of putting your hands on a woman was so unheard of or unthought of. It just, you think of yourself as such an asshole to do it, and we see it more and more now. And this guy seemed like he had no problem whatsoever doing it, and I hope the guy rots in jail. And if that was my daughter that he did it to, he'd be very lucky that the police picked him up before I showed up at the door.
You know what I'd like to hear? I'd like to hear from the NFL. You know, the NFL. Look, I'm gonna go a little down the whole race thing here. Okay, so we're told all the time about how Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, and everybody's gonna take a knee and everything else like that. Well, you know what is it? Do white women not matter? Do white lives not matter? I mean, I'd love to hear the NFL all say that they're going to take a knee this week in concert because they want to bring awareness to the importance of not beating the shit out of women, you know? So, but you know, you won't hear it because stuff like this, they try to bury it underneath the rug because nobody ever really wants to talk about the stuff that's really out there. You know what else is a good thing to question here, Alec? we see this video because of modern technology. I'm assuming that camera was something that was installed for security purposes and it's running for whatever reason. Or maybe it's a nanny cam or something like that. Think about how many times that may have happened before technology became what it is today.
Yeah, you're right about that, Dennis. Yeah, this was some type of like Ring camera that was set up in the house or something like that. Could have been just to watch the baby in the crib, something like that, that captured this violent image. But yeah, listen, if you Google NFL domestic abuse, you're going to have pages and pages on Google to go through. This is not an uncommon thing, especially for NFL players, as we know. I mean, we obviously that Ray Rice video was very horrific. We've seen several of these things. The one guy that the Bengals draft before they even drafted the guy, he knocked some woman out in a pancake house. I mean, it's very horrifying that people, and I think, like to me, it stems from a lot of these guys not growing up with a father or a father figure in the household, like so many in the African American community. You're talking about 73% have no father in the home. It's not like one or two people. They're not growing up with a male figure to look up to know, to have that respect for women. They're growing up and they're learning this from other guys that grew up with no dad. So it's a horrifying thing, and it takes place far too often for these NFL players.
There's a guy named O.J. Simpson. Remember what he did? So, what else do you have out there, Alex? What else?
And going along right what you're saying here, you're going to Rochester, New York. Now the numbers keep jumping up. When I first started writing this down, it was 71. Then it was 73. Now it's at 75 murders in Rochester, New York. The mayor, Lovely Warren, declared a state of emergency over the record gun violence. Now she's doing this about 3 weeks before she leaves. She has to step down because she was caught with a couple of gun issues herself here. Her and her husband faced weapon charges, child endangerment charges, and some kind of election campaign fraud thing. So she's out December 1st. She's declaring a state of emergency now, which is kind of like calling the fire department after the building burns to the ground. The shit is out of control in Rochester, New York. Record-breaking murder, 75 murders. And there's been 381 people shot in Rochester, New York. 87% of the victims are Black. And there is no Black Lives Matter movement there. There's nobody there. All the pastors aren't flooding into the neighborhood to see how they can save all these lives. No one seems to give a shit. And there was one, the 73rd murder that happened was in broad daylight. They shot and beat this guy to death right at the bus stop in Rochester, New York, the bus terminal. And so and this all stems from the mayor's big push for bail reform last year and for defunding the police. And we're seeing it in all these neighborhoods that are embracing this defund the police and this bail reform. The cities are turning into absolute shit. And Rochester, New York is a perfect example of this, which she wants to try to handle with some type of holistic manner, whatever that means.
Yeah, she said something that we're going to handle it holistically. What are we going to do? We going to burn candles on the corner and ask people to put essential oils on their forehead to try to make them less violent? She's out of her mind. See, this is Alec. I'm telling you, as you continue to get more embedded in the world of news and these sort of things, you're going to find that these stories are all around us, and it's just a function of when somebody reports them. I mean, Rochester, New York. For people who are unfamiliar with Rochester, New York, we're not talking about Brooklyn or the Bronx, something that's right next to Manhattan. I mean, Rochester. It's in upstate New York, pretty much. So, I mean, it's like, what's going on there? I mean, it's not even like when you look at South Chicago, in proximity to Chicago, it's not far, right? It's right there. Rochester? You got to be kidding me. If Rochester, to get to Rochester is a forever and a day ride. And this is what's happening in a place like Rochester. And it basically comes down to this. And if you disagree with me, hit me hard with it. I don't care if it's a business environment, if it is a home environment, if it is a town, state, or country. You need to have discipline. You need to have rules. You need to have leadership. And if you don't have leadership, if you don't have somebody that's going to hold you accountable for the crimes and the mishaps and the lies that you conduct, whether it is lying to your mother about why you didn't do your homework, or whether it's stealing something from a store, or whether it is, locking up people in a nursing home during COVID when you know that they shouldn't be in there, people need to be held accountable. And if they're not held accountable, if they know there's no crime to pay, the problems just get worse. It's when you know that you have a price to pay that stops. So when you have something like bail reform, if you're defunding the police, if you're ripping leadership and you're ripping rules out of society, you're going to wind up getting chaos. And that's exactly what we have. What say you?
Yeah, Dennis. Yeah, I had Rudy Giuliani on my podcast a little while back, and just talking with him about this. He actually made New York City great again at one point because he took it from a shithole and made it into a great place to bring your family again. And he did that with his broken windows policy by punishing these guys that were the low-level offenders. Because if you're not going to start at the bottom, you're never going to get to the top ones. And that's what he did. He started from that, from the squeegee men that he cleaned up and stuff like that. It starts with those little things. And we're just seeing it. Listen, it's out of control right now. We're not just Rochester. Rochesters are a dime a dozen in this country right now. All of these left-wing liberal mayors are destroying cities across. And isn't it interesting, too, Dennis, that this year so far in America, over 115 black men have been shot and killed by police. How many of them can you name? We can't seem to name any of them. There haven't been any Black Lives Matter rallies. We don't see anything. What happened? Why don't we see it anymore? Kind of funny how last year, the years before leading into the election, we saw them all the time. You can name almost, every one of them that was shot by the police. This year, we can't name any of them. I wonder why that is.
Because they already got what they want. I mean, look at the one woman who's one of the big ringleaders there at Black Lives Matter. What'd she do? She raised millions of dollars and she went out and bought herself homes. Right. So, they got what they want. The leadership who started this crap, they got what they want. They're either powerful people who have themselves now podcasts or television appearances. They've written books. They've taken in people's donations. They've wound up keeping those donations. I'm guessing. I'm not pointing to anybody's finger exactly. Pointing finger at anybody exactly. But that's what it appears to me as if it's the case. And then you get this story like with this woman buying all these millions of dollars of homes in the places where she's been slamming people. So why isn't she buying places in the middle of the hood that she says she's trying to defend? So that's why I think you don't hear about it anymore, because they don't care. They got their money, they got what they wanted, they got their power, and now they're moving on. It's basically what it comes down to.
Inspiring if you look at it from the side of the hustle. These two lesbian women that started this Black Lives Matter, they hustled everybody, and everybody got taken. People were donating left and right. Now they got mansions out there, and that's the end of that. So, but racism must be cured because we haven't seen any rallies or marches this year. So, problem solved there.
There you go. So, but it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that. You talk about racism and the disgustingness of how the media has tried to make what a racist is and is not. And that's the shame of it all, because there are actual racists here in the country. There's no doubt. Very few of them, but there are some. But we have lost the meaning of what a racist is, because everybody just gets marked as a racist if you say something or do something that the left doesn't like. For instance, this guy, Kyle Rittenhouse, I mean, what's going on in Kenosha right now is just baffling to me. I can't believe this jury is still out. That scares the hell out of me. But, the media, Joe Biden, how many Democrats flagged this kid as a white supremacist, KKK racist. And they're still going with that narrative. And most people in America, if they even know that name at this point, they're probably going to align thinking that this guy is a mass shooter who just walked into a Walmart sort of a situation, or walked into a school and just started blowing people up for no reason whatsoever, and because he's got some kind of document somewhere saying about how he hates black people. That's what you would think based on the way that the narrative's going. That's the way that they're reporting it. Joe Biden, right? But what is it? This is a kid who maybe found himself going to a place that he shouldn't have been. I'd like to find out more about his father and where his father is. I mean, I've seen his mother, but does he even have a father? I don't know that much about it. But
yeah, there's a strange relationship there.
It's strange, right? But I mean, so I know if my 17-year-old son said, "Hey, Dad, I'm going to go take the AR-15 and go help bandage people in Kenosha, Wisconsin," I said, no, you're not going. I appreciate the fact that you want to be a cop and that you're a good kid and you want to take off the graffiti, but that's not the place to go. But beyond the mistake of going to where he went, which I think was a mistake, right? This kid defended himself. And oh, by the way, the people who he wound up shooting and killing and wounding aren't black. They're white. So how can he be a racist? And that's one of the problems we have, is that the dilution of the meaning of racist has really taken away the spotlight about where racism really is applied. And that's the shame of it all, especially for the Black community. Now, with that being said, before we go into Kyle, because I do want to get your take on that, I know you do have another story about a father who died and his young son watched it happen.
Yeah, this is so tragic, Dennis, that this happened. A 13-year-old boy, he ended up calling 911 because his father was going into cardiac arrest. He was 45 years old. He didn't know it at the time. He just knew that his dad dropped and wasn't breathing. So he calls 911, and it takes them 8 minutes to even assign cops to this. Now, the story for this is because Seattle is one of these places, just like New York City, where you had a bunch of police, fire department, first responders all get shit canned from the job because they wouldn't take the vaccine. So they're reduced in force. Their force numbers are down. Their response times are being delayed as a result of this. Like I said, it took them 8 minutes to even assign police. A tragic part of this story is that the fire department shows up 15 minutes into this, but there's a note in the computer that there's a violent, aggressive person living in the apartment, which turned out later to be a guy that previously lived there. It had nothing to do with the kid or the apartment they were going to. So the fire department waits for the police to show up, who take an extra 6 minutes to get there. So it's about 20 minutes, 21 minutes before they even get in to work on this kid's dad, who called 911 twice, begging for help. And they tried to work on the dad, but he ended up dying right in front of the 13-year-old kid. But this is one of these things that it's a result of these mandates that have been crippling the police departments in these major cities. In Seattle, this is one of the situations that we're going to see more and more of as the response times get greater and greater.
You know, every election is so important. And this week we had on, it was a great podcast. It's the longest podcast I ever did, Alec. It was 2 hours long. I had this guy, his name is Joe Vaughn, and he's an expert in patents. He's an expert in auditing. This guy is one of the smart people. You know, he came up with the little Q code, you know, the little Q code where you take your phone and now with the menus, you could go and you get everything on your phone. He's the developer of that. So I think
Wow.
he's every business in the world licenses it from him. So he must be loaded. But regardless, he was explaining to me in great detail, but in layman detail, how it is that all these ballots and how the process of voting and all that other stuff, it's all rigged. And I was like, when he's explaining it to me, I'm like, holy cow, it's why it went 2 hours. He was explaining how to get past it, meaning how to fix it so it doesn't happen again. Let's assume that we can do that. The upcoming election in 2022 for the midterms is going to be one of the most important elections of our lifetime, in the sense that it is the only way to stop what Joe Biden and these crazy Democrats are doing. If we do not take over one of the chambers, and I say we, I mean conservatives, if we do not take back the House, we do not take this back the Senate, I don't know how this country is going to wind up getting past. I mean, it will survive. We're not going to fall into the ocean. But I don't understand how it is that our freedoms and the American dream will be able to survive as we know it in the past this Biden administration. We're going to talk in a second about what's going on with this crazy spending bill. But when you look forward to 2024, it's the same thing. I can't understand how there is any American who can proudly say today that they have voted for any of these Democrats. What you're talking about right there with this young boy watching his father die in front of him, because it sounds like the response was so freaking slow, that is a result of these asinine mandates that are useless. They're actually crazy useless. And this is all driven by the Democrats. Anybody who votes for a Democrat needs to understand that it very well could be you or your kid or your loved one who's laying in the middle of the street who can't get somebody to respond because of the stupid policies that are put in place by Democrats. There is no other way for me or anybody else to justify or explain what's going on other than to point back at the Democrats. That is really what it comes down to. Even when you go back to look at Kyle Rittenhouse, look at the way that this boy has been treated and vilified and mischaracterized simply because the left wants to get out this narrative that all white guys with guns are racists and just looking to walk through the streets and kill people. What say you?
Yeah, and you could see that through the narrative. If you didn't know anything about the Kyle Rittenhouse case, other than what you heard from the media, and then you watched the trial, and people have attested to this online, that they were just shocked by some of the details that they heard during the trial because they had heard a totally different story from mainstream media, and it's all by design. And now we just see in the trial, MSNBC has now been banned from the courtroom because MSNBC sent this reporter, or they claim is affiliate or whatever it is, to follow the jury van, and got nailed because he ran a red light to try to keep up with the jury van. And they found out, here he is. And now they say, oh, he wasn't going to try to take any pictures or talk to the jury. Then why is he following them? So the judge banned him. And it's having, this all weighs on the jury. The jury ain't stupid. They see what's going on. Why the jury wasn't ever sequestered makes really no sense in this case. But they see what's going on. And if you don't think it's going to have any influence on the decision, you're out of your mind, because they see what's going on. Even the judge getting all kind of death threats. The lawyers see it coming. And one of the side notes here, too, during the trial, the guy, they call him Lunch Pail or Lunchbox now, one of the prosecutors, the big guy, he said in one of his statements where they were trying to downplay everything that the rioters were doing. Like, oh, so they lit a couple of garbage cans on fire. Oh, so they did all this. The big guy, Lunch Pail, goes, hey, everyone takes a beating, sometimes, downplays it. And we just saw Kristen Evans take her beating. And I guess that's what he's referring to. Everyone takes a beating once in a while. So as if it's some kind of good thing. So they said that Kyle should have just took his beating instead of shooting the gun. So that's the type of asinine. That's coming from the prosecution, which is really mind-boggling. So this whole case has been terribly handled by the media, but by design. Don't make any mistake about it.
Listen, on top of the prosecutor, who's a radical lefty, I mean, if you see the way he's holding the AR-15 in the courtroom, I mean, he's breaking every single last gun safety rule that there is. But you know what? They don't care, the left. They just don't care. I want to get something from you. I want to play a video. I'm going to play a 1-minute video here. I want to show you the House Minority Leader, Kevin McCarthy. He's a Republican out of California. He went into this 8-hour speech last night to try to stop this crazy spending bill by Joe Biden. Take a listen to this.
Now, her amendment that would prohibit funds from going to entities tied to the Chinese Communist Party. Come on. Seriously. I'm serious. This is an amendment that was rejected. So I ask you, is it right to raise taxes on small businesses whose only crime is making their product in America? Is it right to cast a vote that will bring more drugs, more crime, more job losses into your communities? Is it right to destroy safety to accommodate open borders? Is it right to tax the energy our seniors need to heat their homes in the winter? Is it right to cut taxes for the wealthiest Americans simply because they live in Nancy Pelosi's district or Senator Schumer's backyard? Is it right that $200 million goes to the Speaker's district for a park?
Let me read this to you off the DML News app. We just put this out a couple minutes ago. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy unleashed a marathon tirade overnight in opposition to President Biden's social spending bill, ranting for more than 8 hours on the House floor and breaking a record for the chamber's longest continuous speech in modern history. McCarthy spoke for 8 hours and 33 minutes and ripped the nearly $2 trillion Build Back Better package as the single most reckless, irresponsible spending bill in our nation's history, right? I want to read something to you also from Breitbart. This is from Neil Monroe. It was published this morning. Listen to this. The Democrats' Build Back Better bill will add millions of new migrants to the U.S. population in the first 10 years on top of an amnesty for roughly 6.5 million people, according to the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO. About 6.5 million aliens, non-U.S. nationals, would receive parole, says the notes to the CBO's $121.7 billion cost estimate. The November 18 note continues with this. A few million other people, most of whom are already in the United States, would gain legal permanent residence or green card status through the provisions in Section 60002 and 60003, or as immediate relatives of those who gain that sort of status under the bill. The beneficiaries include at least 1 million chain migrants, plus most of the 1 million foreign contract workers who are now using real or faked H-1B visas and other work permits to take jobs in the United States. The bill provides the contract workers and their families the hugely valuable prize of U.S. green cards. The cards can be converted into citizenship, voting rights, and the ability to bring in chain migrants after just 5 years. The prize is a reward from the U.S. government for taking the white-collar jobs needed by U.S. graduates. The foreign workers, nearly all of whom are Indian, are being imported to create an investor-controlled, compliant workplace for the nation's skilled jobs. Roughly 1 million contract workers are now working to get the green cards, and roughly 400,000 more are imported each year to take more of the jobs sought by each year's cohort of 800,000 new U.S. skilled graduates. The investor-driven outsourcing policy is enabled by government-enabled workplace discrimination against the once powerful and prosperous political force, the U.S. professional class. The establishment media, including its professional journalists, are hiding the scale of the migration expansion. Any media blackout will muffle the public's reaction, so helping Democrat senators and business lobbyists shove the bill through the Senate. Buried in the Build Back Better legislation are several jaw-dropping immigration provisions that would sell out American workers for the benefit of the largest and most influential corporate interests. The bill also opens the nation's borders to at least 3 million pending migrants who have been sponsored by recent immigrants. The CBO reference to millions suggests that at least 1 million of these waiting chain migrants will get green cards from the Democrats' bill during the next 10 years. But it would be a disaster for ordinary Americans and their children because it will hold down their wages, spike the price of housing, and dilute Americans' political and social clout in their own homeland. The inflow would also spur many new conflicts over civics and diversity, so allowing politicians and journalists to ignore critical issues about education, productivity, research, and shared wealth. The CBO's prediction says millions of additional legal immigrants will get green cards. The millions would be in addition to the existing annual inflow of 1 million legal immigrants, 1 million southern border crossers, and at least 700,000 new foreign contract workers. Labor migration is deeply unpopular because it damages ordinary Americans' career opportunities, cuts their wages, and raises their rents. Migration also curbs Americans' productivity, shrinks their political clout, and widens regional wealth gaps. Migration also radicalizes Americans' democratic, compromise-promoting civic culture and allows elites to ignore despairing Americans at the bottom of society. For many years, a wide variety of pollsters have shown deep and broad opposition to labor migration and the inflow of temporary contract workers into jobs sought by young U.S. graduates. This opposition is multiracial, cross-sex, non-racist, class-based, bipartisan, rational, persistent, backed by Democrat voters, and rests on the solidarity that Americans owe to each other. Now, I know that was long, but this guy Monroe, I've known him for years, he nails it. So let me put the translation in this for you, Alec. You work 3 jobs right now, and I'm holding you from going to your pizza party with your kids at school. So on top of that, you really have 4 jobs, because your 4th job, most important one, is to be a dad and to be a husband. And meanwhile, you're working Uber on the weekends, you're a mechanic on the rails or the railways, you're doing your podcast, you're freaking writing a book, you're trying everything you can to try to make it so this way you could give your family a little a hand up, trying to make it so this way they could have the whole American dream. And yet Joe Biden and the Democrats are looking to flood this country with workers from all ends, illegal workers through the border, technology workers from India, you name it. How with this do you plan? What is your plan to circumvent what it is that Joe Biden and Democrats are doing, not only to your state of New Jersey, but to the United States of America? What are you going to do, Alec?
Yeah, and Dennis, listen, I'm going to continue to work hard and hustle, which is the American way to do it, and the only way I know how. But it's discouraging, and especially you mentioned there too. I work on the railroad. I work with a lot of people who came. It's a big melting pot, or like some of the liberals call it, a tossed salad, because they don't want to say melting pot. But the railroad is where you find that. There's people from all over the world there, and I hear the stories of how these people became citizens here. There's some of their stories are heartbreaking, and some of them from Poland won lotteries to get here. The story for them to hear what's happening, how these people are just bum rushing into the country, I think is so disingenuous to these people that waited in line. That are now become American citizens that have been contributing to this country, doing it the right way. It's a slap in the face to everybody that's done it that way. So I don't know. I think what's happening here is by design. It's to change the face of America. It's on purpose. We're seeing the border be open, nothing being done about it. At least President Trump had the stay in Mexico plan, which helped to reduce some of this. But this is just like I say, it's by design, Dennis. So it's scary for myself. I'm going to continue to work, look for my angles, and try to hustle as best I can to support my family. But this is it's a slap in the face to the working people, the middle class of America.
You know, when you look around, I mean, you and I have talked about this, and I'll let you go after this. I mean, when you look around and you see what the price of rent and the price of buying a home is, a lot of people can't identify how that's happening. I can. You have a certain amount of housing, and when you keep on pushing people into a country, they got to live somewhere. And so here you are with 3 jobs trying to get your family in the best position you possibly can. You're talking about moving maybe to Florida if they keep the mandate up there for about getting kids that haven't had to get the shot. You don't want to do it. Well, let me get news for you. Moving to Florida ain't going to be cheap. So with all that said, one of the things that are driving it up is you got 3 jobs, and you got, let's say, for instance, let's just do the math real quick. Let's say, for instance, to rent a house for your family of 5 in Florida, in a decent place where you could send your kid to a decent public school, you're going to be anywhere between $2,500 to $3,000 a month. Easy. That's if you can find it. So you're going to have to work 3 jobs to pay that $3,000 rent, plus all the utilities that come along with it. And now what's going to be against you is that you'll have 3 families from, coming in through Mexico or Honduras. 3 families will crunch into that same house, and they'll be able to afford that $3,000 faster than you will, because they're going to have 3 families that are all absorbing that rent. And therefore, when it's a competition between you and them, you can't get to $4,000, but they certainly can. They could go to $1,300 per person and all do it in there. They'll live in the same house like that. I've seen this in my 12 years of doing all my immigration films. They live in a sardine can, because even living in the sardine can, where they're all sharing the same house, it's a total upgrade from living where they were in, say, Honduras or over in India. So you and your family, if you're not multimillionaire status, you are looking at a unbelievable hurdle to climb if Joe Biden and the Democrats get what they want in this spending bill, if they actually get it. It still has to go to the Senate. We're going to hope that the Senate will tell them, go shit in your hat, and then it's got to go back to the House. But right now, any person in the United States who voted for Democrats is the person to blame for why it is that we are talking about this right now. You get the final word. Who are you interviewing this week? Who's on the schedule? Why should people take a look at what you got?
Well, Monday, I'm putting out my interview with Congressman Jim Jordan. We talked all about this. It's a scary time right now for parents across this country. We've seen that the FBI is using counterintelligence now to call these parents domestic terrorists, even if they're just raising their voice in one of these school board meetings. So we go deep into that. And I think it's an important conversation because, the parents, I think, really are going to change this country around more so than the politicians. The parents are seeing what's happening and they're getting fed up. So many parents stayed home last year with their kids because they couldn't go to school. They were doing it virtually, and they're looking over their shoulders, watching what they're learning, and they're saying, what in the world's going on here? So a lot of parents have woken up over the last year as to what's going on with these school systems. And right now, if you disagree with it, they want the ability to label you a domestic terrorist. So I think he's leading the front on this. I think there's an assault on parents, an assault on the nuclear family unit. We've seen that all last year with Black Lives Matter. Their open mission statement was against the nuclear family unit. After several months, they took that even off because they were getting so much backlash with it. They took it off their website. But let's not kid ourselves. They're outright there to destroy the nuclear family unit, and that is America. We lose that, we lose the country. So parents, more so than politicians, are going to be responsible for bringing and building back this country.
Alec Lace, thank you so much for joining us. People want to check out that Jim Jordan interview. You go to YouTube, you search for First Class Fatherhood. It's going to pop up right there for you. Not only will you see Jim Jordan, but you'll see some of the other great people that he has interviewed along the way, and he'll continue to do so. Alec, we look forward to seeing you again next week. We'll figure out what we're doing for Thanksgiving with the program and stuff, but we'll definitely have you back next week. As always, keep up the good work and go enjoy pizza day with your kids.
You got it. Always a pleasure, Dennis.
All right, pal. Well, that's it for me today. Alec Lace, as always, just brings so much to the program. I thank him. He's a great guy. We're going to be doing more with him over the course of time. With that being said, hey, listen, I'm telling you, you're running out of time. DMLCBD.com/gift. DMLCBD.com/gift. You get this bubble pack. It's open for you so you can see what's inside, right? You get it, but you put a bow on it and you give this to somebody in your family for Hanukkah or Christmas. It is the greatest possible gift you could give them. It is the gift of looking and feeling great again. What are you talking about, DML? What's inside it? Yeah, you pull it out. What do we have? We have our 3 topical products that people absolutely can't get enough of. Number 1, Miracle Me Body Oil for pain relief. You got a pain in your shoulder? Oh man, been holding the microphone all day. You rub it on your shoulder, gone. In most cases, all those sort of pains and aches, whether it's in your feet, your ankles, your legs, your back, your neck, you put it on. I have a bottle of this thing sitting in the side pocket of my car. And whenever I'm doing my drives, if I'm in a long ride, I take it, squirt a little bit, put it on my back of my neck, gone. Miracle Me. You get a bottle of that. Also, DML CBD hand and foot cream brings in hydration like you have never seen it before. You got dry feet, you got cracked feet, your hands are calloused, they're dry. You put this on every single day, it's like baby skin. And then, of course, the last one, the face serum, the DML CBD face serum. You have some lines you don't like, you're starting to get a little older, the wrinkles are kicking in. You want to pull more hydration, you want to get rid of some of those lines, you want to diminish them, you want to start looking where people are like, what did you do to your skin? Yeah, this is what you get. So you buy this for somebody. Typically, this is $175. We have it right now before Thanksgiving and Big Black Friday, $125. You save yourself $50. So you get it. Imagine that being somebody on Christmas. You're opening this up. You get this beautiful bag. You open it up. You're like, oh, what's this? Don't worry about what's this, because here's the card in there. The card explains all 3 products, how you use it, what it does for you. People are going to love this. Then on top of that, because after they love it, they're going to want to buy more. We have a coupon in there. They get a coupon for their first purchase, 20% off. Do not be foolish. Don't go buying a sweater or a tie or something else, or some kind of book they're never going to read. Get them something they can use and can change their life. I have testimonials as long as the Nile River on how people say, oh my God, this has changed my life. DMLCBD.com/gift. You've got only a couple of days left until that price goes up. On Black Friday, that price goes up to $150. And then I go out with this message on Facebook to 1.5 million people. They're going to be gone. Plus, if you order it now, you're getting it shipped out before then. You'll have no problem making sure you get it before Christmas and Hanukkah. So that's it. That's it for me. Thank you, Alec Lace, for joining me. Until the next time, may God bless you, our families, these troops that keep us safe every single day. We love them here in the show. And of course, the United States of America. God bless the United States of America. Until the next time, which will be, God willing, Monday, stay well, stay honest, stay feeling great again. Talk to you soon.
This podcast is produced by Anita Griffey, Lori McLean, and yours truly. And you could subscribe by going to the Apple Podcasts page and search for Dennis Michael Lynch Podcasts. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Or you can download the DML News app from the Google Play Store for Android phones and the Apple App Store for iPhones. And do not forget to visit our sponsor, DMLCBD.com, so this way you can feel great again.